Well, Nicole Rockland and Bly Faust, two of our producers, had secured the rights to the story, and they approached me, and they secured the reporter's life rights. And they approached me, and I guess they had this. They were kind of trying to get something going for years with it, and they had approached me once, and I was in the middle. I think I was finishing Win-Win or something, and I just couldn't. I couldn't get my mind around it because it was such a big story, you know. And I thought, I said, look, I connect to this, but I can't do it right now. And then they came back to me like a year later, and I had a fresh little bit of space in my life, and I said, yeah, it's because there was something just like the Barstool story version is what I call it, which is, you know, new editor comes to the Globe, outsider, ask first meeting, first 10:30, first day is exactly how it happened, and he said, why aren't we going after the Catholic Church? And the fact that he was a Jewish guy from Miami coming to Boston, and I've gone to school in Boston and lived in Boston, I understand that is, as Marty said, you're not a newcomer to Boston, you're an outsider. It's different language, right? And he had this perspective, which really started this whole thing.
Was it a help to be a Bostoner for the story?
I think so. I mean, look, I was raised Irish Catholic. I went to Boston College. The college now owns the property that Cardinal Law, the residence where Cardinal Law was living at the time of the story. It's right across the street from where I went to college. So they bought the property because, ironically, when the Archdiocese had to raise money to pay off survivors, $100 million, they had to sell that land to Boston College. So now they own that residence. So I definitely had a connection to it. And my family's from Rhode Island and from Massachusetts.
Growing up, did you have any inkling of any of this?
I personally didn't. I didn't, but in college and subsequently, I've had friends of mine who have come forward who were abused, or who have brothers who were abused, or who knew people, or who knew priests. So people found out I was doing this story, and just like the reporters, people started coming forward, and that makes it very personal.
Have you ever had some concerns about the reaction of Catholic audience?
I did. I mean, on a personal level, my parents are very Catholic. My family's very Catholic. And the first person I sat down with was my father to say, I'm going to take this on because it means something to them, and I don't take that lightly. And I think in a way, I felt like I was the right person to tell the story for that reason. I'm more of a lapsed Catholic, but I still connect with Catholicism in a spiritual way. I don't agree with the institution and how it's run. There was always a personal stake to me. And part of the reason I did that is because as soon as they announced that I was going to direct this 3 years ago, my parents started getting calls from their friends. Why is he doing this? Why? This story's in the past, you know. And there was always that little bit of pushback through the whole telling of the story.
But do you think that the reception of a film like this would be different in, let's say, the US and, for example, in Italy, where we are now, and where we have also the very strong
Catholic community? I'm very excited to see it with an audience here. I couldn't imagine a better place to premiere it. I mean, personally speaking, I've always wanted to come to this festival. I never have been, and it's thrilling. You know, Mark Ruffalo and I were talking about it last night. He's never been here either, and we're like, it's right there. It's amazing. But I think seeing it in an audience that I would imagine will be majority Catholic will be really interesting. I also think it's an interesting time for the movie because I am an optimist by nature, and I think that this new Pope Francis, is a really interesting guy. I like a lot of what he's saying. I think the church still has a long way to go, and as you know, the best intentions sometimes don't always come to fruition, but I think seems like a time for change, so I think that's exciting.
Do you think it's a story of the past? Do you think it's still going on?
Of course. Because I don't think this problem happened in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, right? I think it's centuries old. And I don't think a problem just ends like that. I think when it's that ingrained into an institution, you don't just remove the cancer that easily. So I think there's reckoning to happen. And I think, honestly, now knowing many of the survivors, like Phil Saviano, who's represented in the movie, in this organization, SNAP, and these other organizations like Bishops Accountability, who are very helpful to us, they're still waiting for the church to own this. And I think, as you probably know, the Pope recently put together a new tribunal of cardinals and bishops, I believe, to oversee the abuse, but it's very in-house.